Okay, welcome everybody. I'm going to give everyone just about a second so that they can get in and get prepared. And looks like we can get started. So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being with us today for Taking Action Together. My name is Lisa Bachman, and I am the Executive Director of the Alabama Holocaust Education Center. And I have to say a huge thank you to our many partners who have helped us spread the word. They're all listed on our website, and I'm incredibly thankful to our team, including Caleb, Haley, Amy, and Carly, for helping with all the details, big and small. A few quick housekeeping notes. This program is being conducted on Zoom webinar. Our speaker is going to leave time at the very end to answer your questions. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's a small button that says Q&A. You'll want to click on that button to submit your questions. We'll get them and we'll see them and we'll make sure that they get asked. Today's program is being recorded, and we do hope that you will share it with your family and friends who were not able to attend today. So our mission is to educate using the history and lessons of the Holocaust. And we work to create a more just and compassionate world that recognizes the humanity of every single individual. This series came out in response to the distressing events of October 7th, as we see very troubling parallels with the past. The rise of the Nazis was marked by dehumanization and division. And today we see a similar surge in anti-Semitism. It threatens not only the Jewish people, but society at large. We have seen a historical rise in anti-Semitism that is leading to other forms of hatred and bigotry that threatens not only Jews, but all of us. Our speaker today is a truly remarkable individual, somebody who embodies the power of empathy, dialogue, and courage in the face of hatred and division. His personal mission is to tackle hatred in all of its forms. Daryl Davis is a musician and author, and most importantly, a bridge builder. His incredible work over the years has not only entertained, but also transformed the hearts and minds of those once lost in the grip of anti-Semitism, racism, and other forms of hatred. Through his unique approach of sitting down with members of white supremacist and neo-Nazi groups, Daryl has personally persuaded hundreds of individuals to renounce their hate, abandon their robes, and choose a path of unity. His journey started with one simple question: how can you hate me when you don't even know me? That curiosity led him into some of the most difficult and unimaginable conversations, breaking down barriers through patience, respect, and mutual understanding. His bravery is not only a testament to his character, but a powerful reminder of how every single one of us can change the world one conversation at a time. This is taking action together. I hope every single one of us finds something that they can take action with. Daryl's work resonates deeply with our mission. After today's program, we hope that you're going to find something, even the smallest of nuggets, that are going to empower you to take action to educate, confront hate, and ensure that the lessons of our past inform our actions today. Daryl's belief in the possibility of transformation, no matter how deep the prejudice, aligns with the core values of this series: the belief in the humanity of every individual. Please join me in welcoming Daryl Davis.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I know some of you came to the concert gala that the Alabama Holocaust Education Center put on just a few weeks back, and were expecting me to speak about what I'm going to talk about today. But I played mostly music and showed a few things. And I want to explain why, because the music was so uplifting, I didn't want to bring graphic images and all kinds of hate to a stage full of uplifting music and spirits. But today, we're going to do that because this is the world that we live in. And I want to warn you that some of the language you will hear on here, some of the scenes that you will see are pretty graphic and pretty profane. And I don't want anybody to be triggered by that. That's why I'm giving you this warning up front. I want to start by just showing you a little piece of a video, and then we'll talk about why I showed the video and what prompted me to get into this kind of work. I'm Daryl Davis. For the last 4 decades, I have dedicated my life to dealing with people like this.
Through invasion from Mexico and every other third world cesspool that's coming here and trying to overrun our borders. Just for the car, brother.
Who was that guy? That was Jeff Scoop, the commander of the NSM, the National Socialist Movement, which was the largest neo-Nazi organization in the United States that he led for 25 years. Okay. Now, that is what we're dealing with today. That was not the 1940s. That was 21st century, just a few years ago. Now let's go back a little ways to 1968. I was 10 years old in the 4th grade. And here is a picture of me. I'm not hard to pick out. I'm the only Black person in the picture. This was a newly integrated school in Massachusetts. Only 2 Black people there total. Myself, 10 years old in the 4th grade, and a little girl in the 2nd grade. That was it. So you see what I was dealing with in 1968. That same year, several of those guys that you see standing on the row with me were members of the Cub Scouts. I had just moved to the area, and they invited me to join the Cub Scouts. So I joined the Cub Scouts, and we had a parade in which people were, nothing but white people, were lined on either side of the street, on the sidewalks, waving and cheering and smiling and having a good time, until we got to a certain point in this parade route when suddenly I was getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and small debris from the street by a small group of spectators off to my right on the sidewalk. And when I turned to see, I saw a couple of kids who I did not know and a couple of adults who I assume were their parents who were throwing things and yelling and screaming. I did not understand what was going on. I thought these people did not like the Scouts. It wasn't until my Scout leaders ran over and huddled over me with their own bodies and escorted me out of the danger that I realized no other Scout was getting this special protection. I was the target of these projectiles. When I asked my Scout leaders why they were doing this, what had I done, they didn't answer me. They shushed me and told me and rushed me along, told me to keep moving. So I kept moving. I never got an answer from my Scout leaders. When I got home, my mom and dad, who were not present at the parade, were putting Band-Aids on me and mercurochrome and cleaning me up, asking me, how did you fall down and get all scraped up? I told them exactly what had happened. I didn't fall down. I told them people hit me with projectiles. For the first time in my life, at the age of 10, my mom and dad sat me down and explained to me what racism was. Believe it or not, I'd never heard the word racism. I was incredulous. I could not believe what they were telling me was true. My 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that someone who had never seen me, never spoken to me, knew nothing about me, would want to inflict pain upon me for no other reason than this, the color of my skin. It made no sense. And to further prove that I was right, my friends, the ones that you saw in the picture here, they looked just like the ones over there on the sidewalk who were throwing these things at me. So it had nothing to do with skin color. My parents were wrong. Well, this was 1968. A lot of things happened for those of you who are old enough to remember. It culminated with the assassination of Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr. And I remember that very well. All major cities in this country burned to the ground with violence and destruction. And I understood that this phenomenon that I'd never heard of called racism did exist. So I believed it existed, but I didn't know why. And I formed a question in my mind, which was, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And I've been looking for the answer to that question now for 56 years, because I'm 66 now, and I was age 10 then. One of the things I did back in the early 1980s, I went to Vienna, Austria, and I met with Simon Wiesenthal, the famed Nazi hunter, to pick his brain about this mentality and all the great accomplishments he had done, bringing Nazis to justice, finding them hiding in Argentina, here in the United States and elsewhere, and bringing them to justice. This is a picture from that time. That's myself and Simon Wiesenthal and a friend of mine over there on the left. So I go way back with this. I've been actively doing this now for about it'll be 45 years next year, but I started it 55 years ago. I'm Daryl Davis. Oops, sorry about that. For the last 4 days. All right. So who better to ask that question of, how can you hate me when you don't even know me, than to ask someone who would go so far as to join an organization that has over 100-year history of practicing hating people who don't look like them, who don't believe as they believe. So I began seeking out members of the Ku Klux Klan. And I would go all up and down the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, interviewing Klan leaders and Klan members, asking that question. And I wrote a book about it. I became the first Black author in the world to write a book on the Ku Klux Klan from the perspective of sitting down face to face with them and interviewing them. Many would talk to me, and there were those who would not talk to me, and there were those who tried to physically attack me. So one of the things I would do, I would go to Klan rallies. This was 30 years ago. As you can see, I'm a lot younger, a little skinnier, a little bit of hair on my head. This is towards the end of a Klan rally. The fire on the cross is burning out. There are more Klansmen and Klanswomen there, but at the end of the rally, they all go off to the side where picnic tables are set up for food and beverages. I asked one of the Klansmen guarding the cross if he would pose for a picture with me, and there you have it. This next one here is from 30 years ago. I'm sorry, from 8 years ago in the state of Missouri. That first one I just showed you was in the state of Maryland. Again, this is towards the end of the rally. You leave a few Klansmen standing there guarding the cross while everybody else goes off to eat and drink. What happens is the cross tips over and hits the ground, and sparks go flying, and they can set things on fire. So these guys are standing there to extinguish it when it comes over. Now, what do I do at these Klan rallies? I engage in conversation. I am a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. So I converse with people. Let me tell you, as a musician, I have performed in all 50 states here in this country. As a musician and lecturer and child of parents in the U.S. Foreign Service, I traveled around the world. I continue to travel around the world now as an adult. I've been to 63 countries on 6 continents. So what does that mean? It means that I have been exposed to a wide variety of cultures, ethnicities, colors of skin, religions, ideologies, belief systems, and all of that has helped influence who I have become today. And I can tell you something, no matter how far I've gone from our country, the United States, whether it's right next door to Canada or right next door to Mexico or halfway around the globe, no matter how different people may be who I encounter, perhaps they don't look like I look, they don't speak my language, or they don't worship as I do, or maybe they don't worship at all. I always conclude one thing, that everybody I have met is a human being. And as such, every human being wants these 5 core values in their lives. Everyone wants to be loved, they want to be respected, they want to be heard, they want to be treated fairly and truthfully, and they want the same things for their family as we want for our families. And if we can learn to apply those 5 core values when we find ourselves in an adversarial situation or in a culture or society in which we are unfamiliar or uncomfortable, I will guarantee you that your navigation of that situation, that culture, that society will be much more smooth, much more positive, and much more productive. So I try to engage in conversation when I attend these things. And as you will see that I'm doing right here. When I first came on that rally ground, that Klansman that you see with the green cross on his mask that I was talking to, he threatened me, threatened my life. That was 8 years ago. Every Christmas since then, he sends me a Christmas present, and he is no longer in the Klan. That is the result of conversation, that is the result of applying those 5 core values. The guy you see on the left with the Confederate battle flag on his sleeve, that was the leader of that Klan. He had the largest Klan group in this country at the time. If he had lived for another year, he would be out of the Klan. He and I were becoming a lot tighter. He was beginning to rethink his ideology. However, he was murdered, unfortunately. I knew him very well. I knew the murderer very well. I knew his whole family very well. But he was taken out. And when you perpetuate hate, hate will come back and bite you. As a result of my going to his funeral, the next guy who took over that Klan group invited me to speak at a Klan meeting in Lexington, Kentucky, which I did, and a Klan rally in South Dakota, which I did. As a result of my speaking at both of those Klan events, some of those members, not that day that I spoke there, but shortly thereafter, began contacting me and sending me their robes and hoods. They no longer wanted to be associated with that ideology. Again, that is the power of applying those 5 core values and applying conversation. Okay, now, what I want to do here is I want to show you a quick snapshot of what can be done. This is a Klan rally that I attended, and I want you to notice that the leader of this Klan group, who oversaw 13 states, he says that even though he and I, his name is Roger Kelly, even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan, because his views on the Klan had been cemented in his mind for years. He went on to say how he believed in separation of the races, because he found that to be in the best interest of all races. But listen to what he says about respect towards the end of the video. One of the things that prompted me to pursue a lot of what I did right before I went to see Simon Wiesenthal, when shortly after I had those rocks and bottles thrown at me at the age of 10, probably around the age of 12, maybe 11 or 12, I was watching a program on PBS with my family. And it was a program on the Nazis in Germany. And it was actual raw footage. I saw a Nazi soldier knock a Jewish woman to the ground and take a brick or piece of cinder block and hit her in the head with it. This was not a Hollywood movie. I see movies like that all the time, and they don't faze me. This was an actual event that I watched. This was real. And I started crying. And I asked my father, how can people do this? And again, he continued the same lecture he had given me on racism and anti-Semitism and how people, some people do not like others who are not the same as them. And that's what prompted me to go to Vienna, Austria, and meet Simon Wiesenthal, and then begin applying some of these things. So let me show you this CNN video of a Klan rally that I attended. This is one of the guys who I interviewed for my book, one of the Klan leaders. This is CNN.
Welcome to this final hour of CNN Sunday Morning. I'm Bob Kane, and today for Miles O'Brien.
Good morning to you all. I'm Joey Chen.
Friendship can transcend all kinds of boundaries.
Just look at us. And 2 men in Washington area are showing that even an African-American man and a member of the Ku Klux Klan can find common ground. CNN's Carl Rochelle reports.
Davis is one of the few African-Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
Been a tough day for the Klan. Their Maryland rally found many local residents rejecting the message of white separatism. After it's over, Daryl Davis hangs around backstage with his friend, Klan wizard Roger Kelly. It's not unusual for blacks and whites to be friends, but it is unusual to find a black man and a Klan leader chatting pleasantly over an orange soda after a Klan rally. The relationship started over a book Davis was writing. His secretary set up an interview with Roger Kelly, but didn't tell him Davis was black. They talked and talked some more. Davis learning about the Klan, Kelly learning about Davis.
We get to know one another and we do different things. It hasn't changed my views about the Klan, because my views on the Klan's been pretty much cemented in my mind for years. I believe in separation of the races. I believe that's in the best interest of all races.
Does he really? Or has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
All right, man, the hell I'm back, because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Strange. Good adjective. Strange.
Certainly that.
Okay, that was the clip. Now you heard Mr. Kelly say that even though he and I would do different things together, it did not change his views on the Klan, because his views on the Klan had been cemented in his mind for years. He went on to say how he believed in separation of the races, because he found that to be in the best interest of all races. But did you hear him say towards the end of that clip that he respected me? What's up with that? He's the head of the Ku Klux Klan. I'm the enemy. I'm a black guy. What he said was, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those were his words. And these words need to be applied when we find ourselves with an opponent, an adversary. Give that person a platform. Allow them to air their views. Don't shut them down, because how are you going to know how to address them if you don't know what they're trying to do? If you give them enough rope, they will hang themselves by airing their views and give you more ammunition to figure out how to shut them down. All right? He named 3 of those 5 core values that I told you everybody wants. I told you everybody wants to be loved, they want to be respected, they want to be heard, they want to be treated fairly and truthfully, and they want the same things for their family as you want for your family. He named 3. He said, I respected him. He said, he sat down and listened to me. That's 2 right there. Now understand something. I did not respect what Roger Kelly had to say. I'm not a racist. I'm not a separatist. I'm not a nationalist, nor am I a supremacist. I did not respect what Roger Kelly had to say. I simply respected his right to say it. And in doing so, he reciprocated. He treated me fairly. He respected me, as he said. And he sat down and listened to me. He said, we may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those were his words. He indicated respect. He indicated sitting down and listening to one another. That's letting the other person be heard, and treating each other fairly. I did it for him. He did it for me. As a result, every time I would meet with Mr. Kelly, I would apply those 5 core values. As a result, that cement in Roger Kelly's mind that held his ideas together began to get cracks in it, and then it crumbled and fell apart. And then a few years back, Roger Kelly denounced the Ku Klux Klan and shut it down, his chapters in 13 states. When he did that, he was the Imperial Wizard. The guy you first saw talking to me in the white robe with the green, that was the Grand Dragon, means state leader. Imperial Wizard means national leader. They gave up the Klan and gave me their robes and hoods. There you go. Now, that picture does not come by just telling somebody, you're wrong, give me your robes and hoods. No, it comes with applying those 5 core values. Now I have allies who were once in the Klan and now speak out against it. All right? That's one of the things that it takes. There are many different facets to dismantling anti-Semitism and racism. Here's some, I've been doing this now for 45 years. Here are some of the items that I have. Not all of them, but just a few of them. Swastika flags, Klan robes and hoods, etc. I have so many, I can't keep them all in the house. I only keep a few here to give lectures with. All right, now, I want to tell you what else is going on in this world today, in our country especially. This has been going on for a long time, but it's now being ramped up. These white supremacist groups are doing something that to a magnitude that we have not seen in the past. Yes, it's been done in the past, but not to this level. They are recruiting military veterans and law enforcement officers into their ranks because these veterans have training in explosives and automatic weapons. So they want to learn that. because they want a race war. All right. They want to refight the Civil War. They call it RAHOWA, RAHOWA, RAHOWA. Those are the first two letters of three words, racial holy war, RAHOWA. That is the white supremacist term for the race war. They also call it the boogaloo, not to be confused with the 1960s dance music genre, the boogaloo. But if you hear the term the boogaloo or RAHOWA, that's what's being referred to. That's why we're seeing so many lone wolves these days going into the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, going into the Black Church in Charleston, South Carolina, the Walmart in El Paso, Texas, the Sikh Indian Temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin, the Buffalo grocery store. These are called lone wolves. They're also called accelerationists. They're trying to speed up, or what they want to happen is the race war. The demographics of this country are shifting, all right? And in the year 2042, which is less than 17 years from now, this country will be 50-50, 50% white, 50% non-white. Between 2045 and 2050, it's going to flip. And for the first time in the history of this country, whites will become the minority. While there are many, many white people who don't care and say, hey, that doesn't bother me, that's evolution, no big deal. There is a good slice of our population that does care. And those are the ones that I deal with, the ones I'm showing you now, all right? And what they tell me, I deal with the Klan, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the alt-right, the neo-Nazis, you name them. What they tell me is, Daryl, I don't want my grandkids to be brown. They call it the browning of America, or white genocide through miscegenation. And that's why we're seeing so many of these lone wolves. And we will see more, unfortunately, as we get closer and closer to 2042. Now, who do they blame this on? Who do they blame this shift on? They blame it on the Jews in this country. They have to have a scapegoat. First, it was the Blacks. They still don't like Black people, but now they blame it, and they've been doing so for a long time, blaming it on the Jews, and they're ramping it up. That's why you heard those chants in Charlottesville, the Jews will not replace us. They need a scapegoat. And see, they don't consider any Jewish person to be white, regardless of their skin color. All right? They consider that to be a whole separate race, a demonic race. And that's the ideology that they promote. So this is why it's very important that we need to be vigilant. We need to combat anti-Semitism and racism, not separately, but together. And I'm providing one tool. There are many others that we can talk about perhaps on a future call, on a future Zoom call. But now let me show you, I'm going to show you something real quick here. And this is a U.S. veteran. He did two tours of duty in Iraq. He was decorated, all right? Then he came back and he became the Grand Dragon, state leader for the Klan of Florida. At the same time, he joined a Nazi organization, the largest Nazi organization, and became an officer in that group. He had a Klan symbol tattooed on one side of his chest and a swastika on the other. Let's take a look at him. Nice looking young guy, decorated. He was a chief petty officer in our US Navy. And this is what he became. Listen to what he says. And I'll pause it for a second. He says, all Jews are homosexuals. They should be exterminated, every single one of them. I can promise you, if it wasn't for the efforts of myself and a former neo-Nazi who was a very, very good friend of mine, intervening with him, this guy would have been the next lone wolf you'd hear about on TV.
Jews and homosexuals, they should be exterminated, every single one of them.
Now here he is in his Grand Dragon robe. You know, you hear about people waking up and find, Klan flyers on their porch or in their mailbox. That's what he would do under the cover of darkness. So now I got to know him, got to talking to him. I was introduced to him. I knew who he was. He didn't like me. Of course, he didn't like me. He's the head of the Klan down there. But he had some questions. And the former neo-Nazi who knew him persuaded him to get a hold of me and talk with me. We talked for about a year. And then I went down to Florida and I met with him. He was ready to get out. He gave me that Klan robe you saw him wearing. And he gave me this, back up here, gave me this swastika flag when he would lead the neo-Nazi rallies in which he was involved. And he also got his tattoos removed. Here he is here.
Mainly what you came for, but my Grand Dragon robe. This is the hood where they never put eyes in it. So I had to tuck it up inside to wear it. Right. You were going. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is a belt that goes with it. Where's all that stuff going, Daryl?
It was going into my museum.
It'd be my pleasure to help him remove those and start a new life. It just goes to show that people can really change.
It was us having dinner after my visit with him. Okay, so people can really change. You know, now some people will go to their grave being hateful, violent, and racist on all sides, all right? But we should take steps because, you know, this is a learned behavior. Nobody is born that way. They acquire that. What can be learned can be unlearned. And that's what I do. Like I said, there are other methods as well. I know people who engage in many other methods, and we need all of these methods to coordinate with each other to fix our country. All right, now, real quick, and then I'm gonna take some questions here. Let's go to January 6th. This was a scene in the US Capitol on January 6th during the insurrection. You don't have to ask that guy what he wants. He's wearing a Camp Auschwitz t-shirt. He's telling you what he wants, all right? And he thinks he's gonna get it by overturning the election. He and almost everybody there, all right? How many people did you see? You saw thousands, well, you didn't watch thousands, but you saw the accumulation of thousands of hours of footage of the insurrection. How many Jews do you think were attacking the US Capitol? How many Black people did you see attacking the US Capitol? How many Hispanic Americans or Asian Americans? I'm not saying that everybody in those thousands of hours of footage were white supremacists. There were some who were simply disillusioned or whatever, but a lot of them were white supremacists. And that guy right there is telling you what they're looking for, that they're looking to do. And they felt that the person who was running for president at that time, who legally lost the election, was the one who would give them what they wanted in this country. So it was mandatory upon them to overturn that election. This is no joke, folks. And you saw law enforcement trying to prevent them from getting in. You also saw veterans and law enforcement trying to get in forcefully and overturn the election. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And that last guy I just showed you, that is an example of it. A veteran, okay, espousing white supremacist views and wanting to exterminate people, all right? So let's go back to the first guy I showed you, all right? And let's watch the whole clip here. I want to show you how this ends. I'm Daryl Davis. For the last 4 decades, I have dedicated my life to dealing with people like this.
True invasion from Mexico and every other third world cesspool that's coming here and trying to overrun our borders. That's for the car, brother.
Who was that guy? That was Jeff Scoop, the commander of the NSM, the National Socialist Movement, which was the largest neo-Nazi organization in the United States that he led for 25 years. I interviewed Mr. Scoop in 2016, and he told me with no uncertainty and with racist and anti-Semitic venom in his voice.
He would fight to the last bullet for our people.
While it is important to know who he was, it is more important to know who he is today. For the last half a decade, Jeff Scoop has gone from radicalization to reconciliation, from fighting to the last bullet for his people to fighting for the rights of all people. Today, he is a world-class educator, training and assisting law enforcement agencies and other groups, both domestically and internationally, on how to combat counter-extremism. He has successfully de-radicalized others from the ideology of white supremacy and works actively to prevent young people from going down that road and joining those movements. From radicalization to redemption, Jeff has made it his mission to meet with the very people he once diametrically opposed with his racist and anti-Semitic views. When Jeff is not doing good deeds and lecturing on his own, I am proud to travel around the country and share my lecture stage with him. He educates the audience on the triggers which led him to join an extremist movement. He also shares the manipulations and tactics he learned and used to keep people in that ideology and to recruit more members. Equally important, he informs people about what led him to leave the movement and renounce the supremacist ideology that poisoned and imprisoned him for 3 decades. The take-home, audiences become better informed and learn how they too can help make this a less divisive, more kind and accepting society. From standing at opposite ends of the ideological spectrum to coming together and sitting down at Martin Luther King Jr.'s proverbial table of brotherhood. Who is Jeff Scoop today? He's not just my friend, he is my brother. Okay, so now you see how that ended. When you first saw the clip, I intentionally paused it because I wanted you to see where that person was. And then I want to walk you through the things that I do and how I do them. There are a lot of people out there who talk the talk. I assure you, I will walk the walk. And this is what I've shown you today. And now I am ready for your questions.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you, Daryl. We've got a couple questions. One of the first ones that I want to throw out there is you talked about what can be learned can be unlearned. And I think that that's something really important because I don't think people always believe that. And I think we're all looking for a place to get started. What do you recommend we do to get started in talking with somebody that we so profusely disagree with?
Okay, 2 things. 1, walk across the cafeteria. What do I mean by that? It can be done physically, it can be done virtually like we're doing right now. What I notice is all over this country, say in schools or workplaces, you might have a diverse population in that school or workplace. And some of the people are working on the same project together, but they are diverse. They may be different religions, different political views, etc., different colors, but they're working on the same project together. They may even be sharing the same cubicle. But what happens at 12 noon? They go downstairs to the cafeteria, and then they self-segregate. Blacks sit with blacks, Hispanics sit with Hispanics, etc. Does that mean that they're racist or something? No, not necessarily. People tend to feel more comfortable around familiarity. All right. What you need to do is this: once or twice a week, get up from your comfort lunch group and walk across the cafeteria and sit at somebody else's table. All right. Now, if they say, oh, no, you don't belong here, go back to your own table. Well, yeah, there's a problem then, and it must be addressed. But chances are they won't do that. In the process, you have a lot to teach those people at the new table, and you have a lot to learn from them. In the process, you will make a new friend. That is the beginning of planting seeds, not just working together, but meeting each other on a non-work, on a social basis, over lunch, over some kind of other activity, which you're not being paid to do or you're not enrolled in, on your own. You can do it virtually. Like, if you work for a company that it may have a branch in another state or something, and you have your counterpart over there in that state. You're constantly emailing the person with work-related stuff. Why don't you email the person and say, hey, can we have a Zoom call maybe one day after work? Learn about that person's family. How many kids do you have? Oh, my kids like that too. Blah, blah, blah. That's how you get to know one another. And that begins to disintegrate the ideas that held that cement together that Roger Kelly talked about. That's number one. Number two, everybody has heard the adage, one's perception is one's reality. That is true. Whatever somebody perceives is their reality. Even if it's not true, it's still their reality. And you cannot change anybody's reality. When you Google my name in the media, it'll say Daryl Davis, Black musician who converted X number of white supremacists or X number of KKK people. No, I did not even convert one. I am the impetus for over 200 to convert themselves. All right. And how did I do that? I do it by this. One's perception is one's reality. If you attack somebody's reality, you're going to get resistance. You're going to get pushback. All right. So you don't want to do that. What you do is you offer them a better perception, or perceptions, plural. If they resonate with one of your perceptions, then they will change their own reality, because one's perception becomes one's reality. So regardless of how wrong they may be, regardless of how badly whatever they say or believe triggers you, do not attack their reality. They only know what they know. All right. And if you attack it, if you keep attacking it, it's going to escalate, and maybe even escalate to the point of violence. So regardless, give them a better perception. And then when I'll give you one quick example and then take the next question. Let's say, Lisa, you have a 7 or 8-year-old brother, and he goes to a magic show with his buddies, comes back home and tells you, Lisa, you're not gonna believe this. This magician brought this woman from the audience on stage, had her climb into this box, put her feet out the hole here, and put her head out the hole at the other end. And he closed the lid. He took a chainsaw and went right down the middle and came out the bottom. He cut her in half. And then he told her to wiggle her feet, and she wiggled her feet. And you say, listen, it didn't really happen like that. Yes, it did. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. This is exactly what's going to happen. He is 100% correct. You were not there. You did not see it. How dare you tell him something? He was there. He saw it with his eyes. He knows this man cut her in half. So why are you telling him something when you weren't even there, right? You have attacked his reality. He's resisting. And to prove to you that he's right, he tells you after he cut her in half and she wiggled her feet, he moved the half of the box over here to stage right, or with the feet, and the other half with the head over here to stage left. And then he walked over there and talked to the woman's head, and she spoke back. And then he brought the two halves back together and did some abracadabra incantation over the box and opened the lid, and she climbed out, all back together, no blood. He cut her in half, put her back together. And you say, listen, it's an illusion. No, it was not. He's going to go off on you again. And it's going to even get higher in intensity to the point where you guys might, become physical. So you don't want to attack somebody's reality. All you're doing is empowering them to defend themselves. What you want to do is offer them a better perception. So you can say something like this. Listen, I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you a question. Do you think that maybe, just perhaps, it's possible that the woman he brought up on stage from the audience, that maybe she knows the trick, that she works with him, she travels all over the country and sits in that same theater seat everywhere they go? That way he can look around the audience and then always zoom right in on her and bring her up. And when she climbs in the box, there might be a pair of mannequin dummy legs that are lying on the floor of the box wearing the same stockings and same high heels that she has on. She grabs the ends of them by the handles and shoves them out the hole. And then she brings her own knees up under her chest. So her whole body is on that half of the box. So when the saw goes through, it never touches her. And then when he says, wiggle your feet, she grabs those handles and shakes them, and the feet wiggle outside the hole. But now, when he separates the two halves and puts the half of the feet over here, they can no longer move. So he needs to divert your eyes from looking at those feet. So he's going to walk over here to where the head is. Of course, the head is going to talk back. Her whole body is there. So he doesn't want you looking at those feet that can't move anymore. So now he brings the two halves back together. She grabs the handles, pulls them back into the box, leaves the legs on the floor of the box, and she climbs out. And then your brother says, you know, that might be the only way that could work. You've offered him a better perception and he has resonated with it, and now it becomes his reality. Isn't that a lot better than trying to force somebody to believe something that they saw and you weren't even there and didn't see it? That is how we change reality, by offering better perceptions. And that's how I have come.
Yeah.
That's how I have come to be the impetus for over 200 white supremacists to leave that ideology.
And, you know, it's funny, I love that way of thinking. And what you're describing is when we were raising our youngest son, we had to learn how to talk to him. And I'm curious, you know, to see if you do have advice. There's a big component of that where we've got to look deep inside ourselves to figure out, because our first reaction is, no, he didn't cut her in half. That tends to be the way we think. How can we retrain our brains so that we can kind of step back and take that pause so that, we think in that different way?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, a lot of times in schools and things like that, even at home or with our friends, we are taught what to think. And we don't get into how to think until we get to college. And sometimes, you know, if we go to college, right? Some people don't go to college, but you know, we get to critical thinking when we get to college. By that time, oftentimes it's very late, and people's brains are already cemented, as the man said in the video, right? So, you know, we all are taught, you, me, and I'm sure everybody on this webinar, when we were kids, we heard the adage, a tiger does not change its stripes. A leopard does not change its spots, all right? So that's true. So why would we think that a Klansman or Klanswoman would change their Robin Hood, or a Nazi would change his swastika armband or flag? You know, that's who they are. Well, here's the thing. It is true. A tiger does not change those stripes, and a leopard does not change those spots. They are born with those stripes and spots. They can't change, all right? A Klansman or Nazi is not born with that Robin Hood or that swastika. That is a learned ideology. And yes, what can be learned can be unlearned, all right? And here's the thing. There's ignorance and there's stupidity. Ignorance is when a person makes a wrong decision or a bad choice because he or she does not have the facts or the proper information to make the correct decision or a good choice. You give them the proper information, give them the facts, you have alleviated the ignorance, and they can do, perform the right answer, all right? A stupid person is someone who has the proper information, who has the facts, and still makes the wrong decision or bad choice. So ignorance can be cured through exposure and education. Unfortunately, stupidity cannot be cured, because if you give somebody the information and the facts, there's nothing you can do until they decide to employ them.
Yeah, you just answered one of the questions that came in is, how can you change somebody's reality when they're not interested in the facts? So I think we've got
by offering them another perception.
Yeah, exactly. So one of our attendees would like to know if you've ever had any interactions with leaders of the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers, and if so, how did that go?
It went very well. I've dealt with some of the Proud Boys and some of the Oath Keepers. Some of them are still a work in progress.
Wonderful.
People don't change overnight. I mean, it can happen, but it's rare because they've been inundated with this stuff. It's like putting on weight. You put on, let's say you put on an extra 50 pounds like I have, since some of those pictures I showed you of me. Okay, I didn't put on those 50 pounds overnight by just having a 7-course dinner or something. I put it on over years. So there is nothing, there's no pill I can take tonight or today and lose that 50 pounds by tomorrow. All right. Change is incremental. So when you've been inundated and saturated and surrounded yourself with that same ideology, reinforcing it every day, you don't just change it overnight. All right. But what happens is like Roger Kelly, that cement in his mind, because he had it there for years, right? And as I was giving him new perceptions, he was struggling with that. And that caused the cement to crack, because he began wondering, well, you know what? That black guy that I just talked with, we talked for 3 hours and we didn't come to blows. And what that Daryl Davis guy said is true. Oh, but he's black. But what he said made sense. Oh, but he's black. So it's causing a cognitive dissonance. So it gets so he's tossing and turning this dilemma. It has to be resolved. So he has a decision to make. Do I disregard his skin color because it shouldn't matter and believe the truth because he spoke the truth and change my ideological direction? Or do I consider the fact that he's black and therefore continue living a lie? That's the decision he has to make. Well, it's always a lot easier to follow the path of the truth. And that's what he did. It didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, I remember you showing how you start talking with somebody when they're here, and then at the next conversation you come here and then here.
Exactly. So, you might start, with your adversary. You're this far apart on the ideological spectrum. You talk with your worst enemy for 5 minutes, you will find something in common, and that gap narrows. Talk another 5 minutes, you'll find more in common. And when you're here, you are having a relationship with your opponent. You might not be going to his birthday party or something, but you're having a cordial relationship with them. You keep on talking, you found more in common, and now you all are friendly. And when it gets around here, he or she begins wondering, why did I hate that person? They have found so much more in common than they have in contrast, that the few trivial things like skin color, or whether you go to a church, a synagogue, a mosque, or a temple, begin to matter less and less. And then they have that dilemma. Why did I hate that person? That person is just simply a different color, but we all like the same things. We do the same things. We enjoy the same things. And they have to, decide, should I change my ideological direction, or do I continue living a lie? Now, I will say this. If somebody, I have seen leaders drop out, like the Grand Dragon, Imperial Wizard. I have several Imperial Wizard robes and Grand Dragon robes, as well as just rank and file members. When you are in a position, Jeff Scoop was a leader, the 25-year leader of the largest neo-Nazi organization in this country. Myself and a Muslim woman, Dia Khan, good friend of mine, helped get him out of that ideology after he'd been stuck in it for 25 years. All right. It doesn't change overnight, but when you are in a leadership position, that means you have a following. You have a following. People who admire you and worship you, people that you have recruited into your midst, right? How do you then go back and say, hey, folks, I was wrong. You all need to quit too. It's kind of embarrassing and humiliating, right? And plus, you don't want to give up that power. When you sat on the throne of power, as white supremacy has in this country, for 400 years, you don't want to get off that throne. That's all you know. You look at our last president, he was only in power for 4 years and thinks he's still there. So, power is a drug.
Yep.
So it may take a longer time for a leader to come to that conclusion, I need to change, than just a rank and file member. The rank and file member doesn't have anybody following him and hasn't recruited anybody into the organization, maybe except for his best friend. But a leader has lots of followers and lots of recruits. And how do you go to those people and say, hey, people, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Y'all need to like Black people, like Jewish people, like, this group or that group.
Yeah, those are definitely very tough dilemmas. And I think, one of the biggest takeaways, and I learned something from you every time I hear you speak, Daryl. It's so wonderful. But, I think that what really has resonated for me is that this takes time, and that it's not something that just happens overnight, and I will make this our very last question. They want to know what you said to the person who I think it might have been Jeff Scoop, who said all Jews are homosexuals and need to be exterminated. Where did you start with him?
I started by saying we need to get together and have dinner. Okay, because then what happens is
Doesn't seem like it should be that simple. I mean,
it doesn't seem like, but sometimes you've heard the expression, "Don't make a mountain out of a molehill." That's what it is. Okay, yeah, some things are more complicated than others, but we don't need to exacerbate something and make it complicated when it's not. When you're sitting down with your enemy, chances are there are not going to be two pairs of salt shakers and pepper shakers or ketchup bottle, if you're having French fries or onion rings or something. All right. You order a basket of onion rings. Your enemy is going to use the same salt shaker that you are to salt those onion rings. So now you're using the same thing. If it's one basket, a big basket of French fries or chicken tenders or whatever you're eating with that person, you both are drawing food out of the same basket. Now, you don't point it out, but they go home and realize, oh man, I just, I was eating food. Not only, did we have lunch together, we were sharing the food out of the same basket, using the same salt and pepper shaker. These are things that you and I, Lisa, and I'm sure everybody on the webinar take for granted, but they don't take it for granted. When they get off work, even though they may have to work with Black people, they have to work with Jewish people because they have to draw a paycheck, you understand? They got to pay their mortgage. They got to, pay the car note or their rent on wherever they live, all right? They need that paycheck. So they work with these people that they don't like just to draw that paycheck, all right? But at 5 o'clock when they clock out, do they go to happy hour with those people? No, they go with their own kind. So I get them a little bit out of their comfort zone. I take them to happy hour. So now they're having happy hour with the Black guy. And we're sharing stories. We're sharing chicken tenders or onion rings, crab dip, whatever. The salt and pepper shaker. I know it's their first time sharing that with a Black man. I've done it over 10,000 times with a white person or somebody else throughout the course of my 66 years on this earth. But it's their first time. So, we need to be patient. Change occurs incrementally. But we do not need to sit back and wait and see what happens. Our country can only become one of two things, everybody out there. One, it can become that which we sit back and watch what our country becomes, or two, that which we stand up and make it become what we want to see. So you have to ask yourselves the question, do I want to sit back and see what my country becomes, or do I want to stand up and make it become what I want to see? I've chosen the latter. And the rest is up to you.
That's incredibly powerful, Daryl. Thank you so much. And I think I'm pretty proud to say that all of us here at the Alabama Holocaust Education Center have also chosen the course of action. And I really hope that during this conversation today, each and every one of you has found at least a little something that you can take and put into action in some of your interactions, I guess, and that, we can learn a little bit about patience, we can learn a little bit about listening, and that we really can do this. I mean, Daryl is living proof that we can sit down with somebody that we dramatically disagree with, and we can make something happen. Daryl, thank you for being with us again today. We really appreciate everything.
You're more than welcome. Let me just say one last thing.
Oh, yeah.
In that CNN video at a Roger Kelly's rally that I attended, where we shared an orange soda, we had that in common, right? The two CNN news desk anchor people, at the end of that clip, they implied that I was strange.
Yeah.
Well, if being strange causes people to give up swastika flags and Klan robes and things like that, we all need to be strange.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing of it is this, Lisa, we are living in the 21st century. That stuff does not belong in this century. It does not belong in any century, really. Okay. But we're living in space age times. Let's stop thinking with Stone Age minds. All right. We created the technology to put a man on the moon. And while Neil Armstrong was walking around on the moon talking about one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind, we were able to talk to astronaut Armstrong via satellite radio phone, all the way from Earth to the moon. We invented that technology. We invented email and cell phones. Everybody on this webinar has email. Everybody on this webinar has a cell phone. Type a few numbers, type a few words, hit send. You're talking to somebody right next door or somebody halfway around the world. We invented that technology. How is it that we can talk to people as far away as the moon or anywhere on this planet, but we have so much difficulty in talking to somebody right next door to our home because they are a different color, a different religion, a different persuasion, a different whatever? It seems to me, before we can call ourselves the greatest nation on the face of this earth, perhaps our ideology needs to catch up to our technology. And when we get them both up there, then we can truly brag about how great we are.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank
Really,
you.
really
And thank you, everybody out there.
Yes, no, thank you, thank you. And everyone of you who attended today's program, thank you so much for being here and being with us. Our next Taking Action Together program is going to take place on November 20th at noon Central Time. We are featuring Irmtraud Koshat, who is from the Marshall Rosenberg Center for Nonviolent Communication. As a German native, she spent years studying the Holocaust and is going to show us ways in which we can respond to anti-Semitism every day. So we're taking this conversation that we had with Daryl one step further, and we're going to keep this conversation going. So we hope that you'll join us again. We also want to invite you to a very special program we're having on November 7th as we commemorate Kristallnacht. We will be featuring speaker Peter Hayes, who is going to discuss how businesses, how companies did business with the Nazis. He's going to ask the important question of, was that collaboration or were they complicit? And that's going to be taking place in person at UAB's Hulsey Auditorium, and we hope that you'll come so that you can see and answer that question for yourself. There is registration on our website, which is ahecinfo.org, and just click on the Events and Programs tab. You'll all be receiving a follow-up survey via email with a link to this recording. We hope that you'll take 2 minutes to please take our survey, and please share this recording with anybody who couldn't be here with us today. It's really important. Word of mouth, we find, is the very best way that we get to have these things out there. We want to wish you all a very happy rest of your day. Thank you again for being here, and we can't wait to see you next time. Thank you.